I sat in that conference room on a Monday morning, watching Todd Harrison stand at the head of the table like he owned the world. His voice cut through the silence as he announced mandatory weekend shifts for our entire department, starting immediately. The words hit like a slap. He said our recent project failure was unacceptable, his tone cold and authoritative. But I knew the truth. The project was his, not ours. He made every critical decision that tanked it. My team executed perfectly. Now 12 exhausted faces surrounded me, silent and defeated. Nobody spoke up. Neither did I. Yet. The meeting ended, and everyone dispersed without a word. I walked back to my desk in a daze, my mind racing through everything that had just happened. The fluorescent lights overhead felt too bright, and the usual hum of office activity seemed muted, like everyone was holding their breath. I needed to understand how we got here. 6 weeks ago, Todd Harrison arrived as our new vice president of operations. He came from a competitor firm with this big reputation for turning around struggling departments. Our department was not struggling. We had the best performance metrics in the company, but upper management wanted fresh blood, someone with outside perspective. That is what they told us anyway. Todd wasted no time making his presence known. Within his first week, he took over the Silverton account. This was our biggest client, worth $3 million annually. My team had managed that relationship for 4 years. We knew their preferences, their quirks, their decision-making process inside and out. We had a conservative, data-driven strategy that kept them happy and renewing their contract year after year. Todd dismissed our approach immediately. He called us stuck in old ways during his first team meeting, said we lacked innovation, said the client needed to see bold thinking. I remember sitting in that meeting, exchanging glances with my colleague Angela. We both knew this was a mistake. We tried to warn him. I put together a detailed memo explaining the client's history, their preference for measured approaches, their explicit feedback about wanting stability over flash. Todd barely glanced at it. He told me I was being resistant to change, that I needed to trust his experience. So he went ahead with his innovative approach. He scheduled a presentation with the Silverton executives without consulting anyone on my team. He created this flashy campaign full of risky strategies and trendy marketing concepts that looked impressive on slides but did not align with anything Silverton had ever indicated they wanted. The presentation was a disaster. I was not there, but I heard about it from the Silverton team lead who called me afterward. She said their executives sat through the whole thing with increasingly uncomfortable expressions. When Todd finished, they thanked him politely and said they would be in touch. 2 days later, they pulled half their contract. Gone. $1.5 million in annual revenue vanished because Todd would not listen. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, Todd had been scrambling to explain the loss to his superiors, and apparently, he decided the best explanation was that it was our fault. My team's fault. Never mind that we were not involved in any of the decisions. Never mind that we had tried to warn him. He needed someone to blame, and we were convenient. That afternoon, I made what I thought was a reasonable decision. I gathered my courage and walked to Todd's office. The door was open. He sat behind his massive desk, typing on his computer, his expression focused. I knocked gently on the doorframe. He looked up. His face showed no warmth, no invitation, but he gestured for me to enter. I stepped inside, keeping my posture professional, my tone respectful. I explained that I wanted to discuss the weekend shift policy. I mentioned that the team was already working significant overtime, that morale was suffering, that maybe we could find alternative solutions that would not burn everyone out. Todd leaned back in his chair. His eyes went cold in a way that made my stomach twist. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but sharp. "Are you questioning my leadership, Simone?" I stumbled over my words, trying to backtrack. I said I was just trying to find solutions, just trying to advocate for the team's well-being. I was not questioning him. I respected his authority. He smiled then. It was not a pleasant smile. He said the solution was simple. Do what you are told. I nodded, ready to leave, ready to accept that I had tried and failed, but he was not done. He leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. He said he was watching me closely, that he knew I had been whispering to the team, trying to undermine him, trying to create resistance. My mouth went dry. I had not said anything negative to anyone. I had been careful. Professional. I kept my opinions to myself. Todd continued. He said one more problem from me, and I would be looking for a new job. Did I understand? I understood. But then came the part that made my blood run cold. He casually mentioned that he had already spoken to HR about me, about how I was a problem employee, about how I was creating toxic resistance to change. He said he had been documenting concerns since his second week. I stood there, frozen. He had been building a case against me before I even approached him. He was prepared for any pushback. This whole conversation was a trap, and I had walked right into it. I left his office on shaky legs. I came in trying to advocate for my team, and walked out marked as a target. The weekend shifts were just the beginning. Todd had set his sights on me, and I had no idea how to protect myself. That Monday evening, I stayed late at the office. Everyone else had been forced to leave early. Todd sent out an email about mandatory rest before the weekend shifts began. The office was eerily quiet, just the hum of computers and the distant sound of the cleaning crew on another floor. I knew I needed to protect myself. I needed documentation, evidence, proof that Todd had caused the Silverton failure, not us. Proof that his decisions were what led to the loss. I started pulling files, email chains showing the warnings my team had sent, meeting notes from our sessions with Silverton before Todd took over, financial reports detailing the exact revenue loss and when it occurred, client feedback forms that praised our previous work. I was meticulous. I created a timeline showing exactly when Todd assumed control, when he dismissed our input, when he made each decision that led to the disaster. I saved everything to a folder on my desktop, backing it up to a flash drive I kept in my purse. It took me 3 hours. By the time I finished, it was nearly 9 o'clock at night. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I had a comprehensive file that told the true story. I planned to take it to HR, or maybe even to Patricia Crane, the senior VP who was Todd's boss. Tuesday morning arrived with an email that made my heart sink. HR wanted to see me at 2 o'clock. Mandatory meeting. No explanation given. I tried to tell myself it might be routine. Maybe they wanted to discuss the weekend shift policy. Maybe someone else had complained and they were gathering information. But my gut told me otherwise. At lunch, Angela pulled me aside in the break room. She looked upset, her eyes darting around to make sure no one else was listening. We had worked together for 3 years. She was one of my closest friends at the company. She told me Todd had called her in the day before, asked her questions about me, whether I had been saying negative things about him, whether I had been trying to turn the team against company leadership. My stomach dropped. I asked her what she said. She insisted she told the truth, that I had not done anything wrong, that I had been nothing but professional. But then her voice got quieter. She mentioned that Todd had asked something else, whether I had been accessing files above my clearance level. I felt the blood drain from my face. Somehow Todd knew I had been pulling records. But how? I had legitimate access to most of the files. They were project-related documents. Angela continued. She said Todd made it clear that if anyone helped me access unauthorized information, they would be fired too. She has 3 kids, a mortgage. She cannot afford to lose her job. Her eyes filled with tears as she apologized. Then she walked away, leaving me standing alone in the break room with my untouched sandwich. The 2 o'clock HR meeting was worse than I imagined. I walked into the conference room to find not just Bill Sutherland, the HR director, but also Todd sitting at the table. My heart hammered in my chest. Bill gestured for me to sit. His expression was professionally neutral, giving nothing away. Todd sat calmly, his hands folded on the table, watching me with those cold eyes. Bill explained that they had received concerns about my workplace behavior. He said this in that careful HR language, the kind that sounds reasonable but feels like a noose tightening. Then came the accusations. They said I had attempted to access confidential executive files without authorization, that I had been creating a hostile work environment by questioning leadership decisions, that I had attempted to recruit team members to mutiny against new policies. I tried to defend myself. I explained that the files I accessed were legitimate project documents, that I had only questioned the weekend policy once, professionally and privately, that I had never tried to recruit anyone for anything. Todd reached into his folder and pulled out papers. He slid them across the table. The first was a printed complaint, supposedly from an anonymous team member, claiming I had been pressuring staff to complain about Todd. The language was formal, almost scripted. I was certain it was fabricated. The second document was worse. IT access logs showing that I had pulled files from the executive server the night before. Times, dates, file names, all there in black and white. I protested. Those were project files. I had reason to access them, but Todd had already shaped the narrative. He made it sound like I was snooping, digging for dirt, acting inappropriately. Bill concluded the meeting with devastating news. I was being placed on a performance improvement plan. In corporate speak, that is code for one step from being fired. They would be monitoring my work closely. Any further issues would result in immediate termination. I walked out of that meeting feeling like the walls were closing in. I had tried to gather evidence to protect myself, and Todd had turned it into ammunition against me. He had been tracking my every move. My closest colleague would not back me up. I was being isolated, targeted, and cornered. And the worst part was that everything was happening according to some plan Todd had already set in motion before I even knew I was in danger. Wednesday morning began with a company-wide email from Todd. The subject line read, "Embracing Excellence." I opened it with a sense of dread. The email praised the dedicated team members who were embracing new excellence standards by working the mandatory weekend shifts. He listed names. My entire team, 12 people, called out in front of the whole company. He framed it as an opportunity for growth and development, not the punishment it actually was. Within an hour, the office was buzzing. People from other departments kept asking what my team had done wrong, why we needed corrective weekend shifts. The gossip spread like wildfire, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried to keep my head down and focus on work. I had a performance improvement plan hanging over me. One mistake and I was done. So, I threw myself into my assignments, hoping that perfect execution would somehow save me. Wednesday afternoon, Todd called me into his office. He had a new project, an emergency pitch for a potential client called Baxter Industries. They were a mid-sized manufacturing company looking for consulting services. The deadline was Friday morning. They were coming in for a 9 o'clock presentation. This was a test. I knew it immediately. A tight deadline, a high-stakes client meeting, and all eyes on me to see if I would fail. I worked through Wednesday evening until nearly midnight. I came in early Thursday morning and kept going. I built a comprehensive proposal, market analysis showing Baxter's position in their industry, competitive landscape assessment, 3 different strategic approaches tailored to different risk tolerances, budget projections, implementation timelines, creative campaign concepts, everything they could possibly need to make a decision. By Thursday evening, I had a 70-slide presentation that I was genuinely proud of. It was thorough, professional, and strategic. I saved it to the shared drive where Todd and Patricia Crane could access it for review. I sent an email to both of them confirming that the materials were ready for Friday's 9 o'clock client meeting. I went home Thursday night exhausted but relieved. I had delivered. Whatever test Todd had set for me, I had passed. Friday morning, I arrived at the office at 7:30. I wanted to review the presentation one final time, maybe make minor tweaks, ensure everything was perfect. I logged into my computer and opened the shared drive. My heart stopped. The presentation file was gone. Just gone. The folder was empty. I frantically searched. I checked my email. I checked backup folders. I checked my desktop. Nothing. The file had vanished. At 8:15, my email pinged. Todd. Where is the Baxter presentation? Client arriving in 45 minutes. My hands shook as I typed a response. I explained the file was missing, that I was trying to locate it, that it had been there last night when I uploaded it. I ran to the IT department. Literally ran. Jerry, the lead technician, looked up from his computer as I burst in, breathless. I explained the situation. He said they were dealing with a server issue and were too busy to help immediately. Could I wait until after 9? No, I could not wait until after 9. The client was arriving in 30 minutes. At 8:45, Todd appeared at my cubicle. His face was a mask of controlled anger. "Where is the presentation, Simone?" I tried to explain. The file was deleted or corrupted. Something happened overnight. I had completed it, I swear. It was on the shared drive. His voice was ice. "So you are telling me you did not complete your assignment?" "I did complete it. Something happened to the file." He called Patricia Crane over. She appeared within seconds, her expression stern. Todd explained the situation. I stood there, feeling like a child being scolded, trying to maintain my composure while panic clawed at my throat. The 9 o'clock client meeting was a nightmare. I had to sit there while Todd apologized to the Baxter executives for technical difficulties and personnel issues. He smoothly rescheduled for the following week. The clients left looking unimpressed and skeptical. The moment they were gone, Todd called an emergency team meeting. The entire department filed into the conference room. 25 people packed in, standing room only. Everyone knew something bad was coming. Todd stood at the front and addressed what had happened. He said this was exactly the kind of failure the company could not tolerate, that I had been given a critical assignment and failed to deliver, that this reflected the culture problems they had been working to address. Then he dropped the bomb. Mandatory Saturday training session for the entire team. Professional accountability workshop, 8 hours. Another weekend destroyed because of my supposed failure. I sat there, face burning, as my colleagues avoided eye contact. The humiliation was overwhelming. Public blame for a failure that was not my fault. My professional reputation shredded in front of everyone I worked with. After the meeting, I returned to my desk in a fog, and there, taped to my monitor, was a small yellow sticky note. I looked around. No one was watching. I peeled it off and read it. Check the deleted files log. Your presentation was removed at 11:47 p.m. Thursday from Todd Harrison's administrator login. I cannot help publicly or I will lose my job, but you deserve to know the truth. No signature, but I recognize the handwriting. Jordan, a junior IT staff member. Quiet, competent, someone I had helped train when he first started 2 years ago. My hands trembled holding that note. Todd had deliberately sabotaged me. He had deleted my work using his administrative access. Then he used the failure to humiliate me publicly and punish the entire team again. This was not just retaliation anymore. This was calculated destruction. And I had evidence. But evidence from someone who could not testify without losing their job. Evidence I could not use without exposing Jordan to retaliation. I was trapped with the truth and no way to wield it. Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, my phone rang. HR extension. I answered, already knowing this would not be good news. Bill Sutherland's voice was formal, distant. He needed to see me immediately. I walked to the HR office feeling numb. This was it. Whatever Todd had planned, it was happening now. When I entered the conference room, Todd was already there. Of course he was. Bill got straight to the point. Due to continued performance issues and this morning's critical failure with the Baxter client, they were placing me on immediate, unpaid suspension pending investigation. 2 weeks. Unpaid. The words hit like a physical blow. Unpaid. I had rent due in 1 week. $1,200. My car payment was $325. My mother needed a medication refill that cost $180. I had been helping her with medical expenses since her diabetes got worse last year. I tried to explain. I told them I could not afford unpaid suspension, that I had financial obligations, that this was not fair since I had completed the work and someone had deleted it. Bill said it was company policy during investigations, non-negotiable. Todd added his comment, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Perhaps this time will help you reflect on your professionalism. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to tell them both exactly what I thought, but I did none of those things. I just sat there, feeling my life crumble. They gave me 30 minutes to collect my personal items. A security guard named Paul, someone I had said hello to every morning for 3 years, watched me pack a cardboard box with my belongings. Photos, a coffee mug, some books, the little plant Angela had given me for my birthday. My coworkers avoided looking at me as I walked to the elevator. The shame was suffocating. 32 years old, being escorted out of my job like a criminal. This was the most humiliating moment of my life. The weekend was a nightmare. Saturday morning, I checked my bank account. $473. That was everything I had. Rent due Thursday, car payment due Monday, mom's medication needed by Wednesday. I had no savings. Every extra dollar had gone to helping my mother. Her part-time job barely covered her own rent, and the medical bills were endless. I had been living paycheck to paycheck for months, telling myself it was temporary, that things would stabilize. I called my older brother Jack. He listened to everything, sympathetic, but ultimately helpless. He had just lost his own job 2 months ago. He was living off unemployment and could not help financially. I considered calling my mother, but she was already stressed about her health. Her blood sugar had been unstable. The last thing she needed was to worry about me. I could not burden her with this. Sunday was worse. I spent the day searching job postings, but reality kept hitting me. If I got fired from this position, finding another job in my field would be nearly impossible. Todd was already controlling the narrative. Any reference check would confirm his version of events. I was being systematically erased from my career. I realized Todd's plan with sickening clarity. He was not just punishing me, he was pushing me out completely. Either I would quit to avoid the humiliation, or he would fire me with cause so I could not even collect unemployment. Either way, I would be gone, and he would face no consequences. Monday morning, I stayed home. I was not allowed in the office during suspension. I sat at my kitchen table in my pajamas, drinking coffee and staring at my laptop, feeling utterly lost. My phone buzzed. Text from Angela. They are making us work this weekend, too. Todd announced another excellence initiative. Everyone is exhausted. People are starting to quit. Jake from accounting gave notice this morning. Another text came in from Brian, someone else on my team. We know this is not your fault, but nobody can speak up. Todd is dangerous. I am sorry. The guilt crushed me. My team was suffering and I could not protect them. Good people were quitting. Careers were being damaged, all because I had tried to do the right thing and document the truth. Monday afternoon, an email arrived. Official letter from HR. Investigation findings. I read through the document, my vision blurring with tears. The accusations were all there. Unauthorized file access. Insubordination. Failure to complete critical assignment. Creating hostile work environment. The recommendation was termination. Final hearing scheduled for the end of my 2-week suspension. Unless I could provide compelling evidence of mitigating factors, I would be fired. I had reached rock bottom, or so I thought. Monday evening, another email arrived. This one from an unknown address. No name, just a subject line. You need this. I opened it carefully, half expecting a virus. Inside was a message from Jordan, the IT staff member. This is everything. I am leaving the company next week. Cannot watch this anymore. But I cannot testify or they will destroy me too. Use this wisely. Attached was a zip file. I downloaded it with shaking hands and opened it. Inside were dozens of documents. Files I never could have accessed on my own. Audit trail showing Todd had deleted my Baxter presentation using his administrator access at 11:47 p.m. Thursday. Email drafts from Todd to HR, written before the Baxter meeting had even happened, already blaming me for the failure. His communications with the Silverton client showing every disastrous decision he had made. Financial reports proving the $1.5 million loss was entirely his fault. Screenshots of Todd's emails with Bill Sutherland, showing they had been colluding to build a case against me since his second week. This was it, the smoking gun. Complete, undeniable proof of everything. But I was suspended, cut off from the office. I had no platform to present it, and if I revealed where it came from, Jordan would be destroyed. He was leaving anyway, but they could come after him legally, ruin his career, maybe even sue him. I had the evidence I needed to save myself, but using it meant potentially sacrificing someone who had risked everything to help me. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the files on my screen, feeling more trapped than ever. I spent 3 days going through every file Jordan had sent me. The more I read, the worse it got. This was not just about me. This was systematic. Buried in the files was an email chain between Todd and Patricia Crane, his boss, the senior VP. I had assumed she was ignorant of Todd's behavior. Maybe even an ally, if I could just get the information to her. I was wrong. The emails showed Patricia had brought Todd in specifically to clean house. Her words. They needed to cut costs, and the best way to do that was to force out expensive senior staff and replace them with cheaper junior employees. My team was targeted because we were experienced and well-paid. The Silverton failure was not even a mistake. It was strategic. They planned to use it to justify layoffs. Todd and Patricia had done this at 2 previous companies. It was their pattern. Come in, create chaos, blame existing staff, force people out, reduce payroll, make the numbers look good for a quarter or 2, then move on to the next company before the long-term damage became obvious. I felt sick reading it. These were real people's lives they were destroying. Families, careers, all for quarterly profits. Day 9 of my suspension arrived with a 3-day notice taped to my apartment door. Pay rent or face eviction. I had never been late on rent in my life. Not once. The shame was overwhelming. I called my mother, finally admitting I needed help. What I discovered made everything worse. Mom had been hiding her own crisis. Her diabetes had gotten worse. She had to quit her part-time job at the library. She was behind on her own bills. Her voice shook as she apologized for not being able to help me. I told her not to worry, that I would figure something out. Then I hung up and cried for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Day 10 brought another devastating discovery. I had swallowed my pride and reached out to a former colleague named Jennifer who worked at a competitor company. Just a casual message asking if there were any openings. Her response was careful, sympathetic. She said she would love to help, but I should know that Todd had been making calls around the industry, quietly telling other companies I was difficult, unstable, had created HR problems. She said her boss had already been contacted and told to avoid hiring me. My professional reputation was being destroyed beyond just my current company. Todd was blackballing me across the entire industry. Even if I survived this, I would not be able to find another job in my field. Day 11 was my breaking point. The bill collectors started calling. My phone rang constantly. I stopped answering. Then my mother called, crying. She could not afford her medication refill. Her blood sugar was spiking. She was scared. I promised her I would figure it out, that I would get her the money somehow. But I had no idea how. That afternoon, an email came from Brian. Angela was fired today. Todd said she was dragging down team morale. We are all terrified. Nobody is safe. Angela, my friend, mother of 3. She had worked at the company for 7 years. Now she was gone because Todd needed to keep tightening the screws. I stared at Jordan's evidence file on my laptop. I had been trying to play by the rules. Be professional. Wait for the right moment. Build an airtight case. But people were being destroyed while I waited. I started organizing everything. Building a comprehensive document, timeline of Todd's fraud, evidence of Patricia's complicity, financial analysis showing their pattern at previous companies, names of people hurt, proof of deliberate sabotage. I researched the company's board of directors, found information about our CEO, Catherine West. She had a reputation for ethics and integrity, articles about her commitment to company culture, interviews where she talked about treating employees fairly. Then I discovered something interesting. Catherine had been overseas on a 3-week business trip. She had been gone during this entire situation. The timeline was too perfect to be coincidence. Todd and Patricia had timed this campaign for when the CEO was out of the country. Catherine had returned just 3 days ago. I checked the company calendar. She was back in the office, but getting to her would be impossible. She was protected by executive assistants, security, controlled schedules. I had no access badge anymore. No way to contact her directly without my email going through monitored channels. Day 12 arrived with another devastating blow. A certified letter was delivered to my apartment. I signed for it with trembling hands. It was from a law firm. Todd Harrison was suing me personally for defamation and tortious interference with business relationships. The lawsuit claimed I had been spreading false rumors about him to clients and colleagues. He was demanding $50,000 in damages. I read the legal document in disbelief. This was not about winning. This was intimidation. He knew I could not afford a lawyer, knew I could not fight a lawsuit. The legal costs alone would bury me. And the timing was calculated. If I tried to use my evidence now, he would claim it was retaliation for his lawsuit. He would paint me as vindictive, desperate, willing to fabricate documents to hurt him. He had systematically cut off every avenue of escape. I sat on my couch, surrounded by bills I could not pay, holding a lawsuit I could not fight, knowing people were being fired because of me, watching my mother suffer without medication, and understanding, with perfect clarity, that Todd had won. He had destroyed me financially, professionally, legally, and personally. My termination hearing was in 3 days. I would be fired. I would lose my apartment. I would never work in my field again. And there was nothing I could do about it. I looked at the evidence files one more time. All that truth, all that proof, completely useless. Or was it? Thursday morning, day 13 of suspension. I woke up at 5 a.m. after barely sleeping. For the first time in weeks, my mind was clear, focused. I had 2 choices: give up or fight back, and I was done giving up. I could not email the evidence. Todd and Patricia monitored everything. I could not go to HR. Bill was compromised. I could not wait for my termination hearing. I would be escorted out immediately afterward with no chance to present anything. I needed to get the evidence directly to Catherine West, but her office was on the executive floor. I had no access badge anymore. Her schedule was controlled by assistants who screened every meeting request. She was surrounded by layers of protection designed to keep regular employees from bothering her. I spent Thursday planning. There had to be a way. Some opening, some person who could help. Then I remembered Dennis. He worked security on the executive floor during morning shifts, but I knew him from late nights. 2 years ago, when I was working on a major project, I regularly stayed until 9 or 10 p.m. Dennis worked the night shift back then. We would chat while he made his rounds. He told me about his daughter applying to colleges, showed me her application essays. I had helped him, spent 3 evenings reviewing those essays, giving feedback, helping his daughter strengthen her writing. She got accepted to her top choice school. Dennis had been so grateful. He said if I ever needed anything at all, to let him know. That was my opening. Friday afternoon, day 14, I prepared everything. I burned all the evidence to a disk as backup, printed the complete documentation, 147 pages, created an executive summary in the first 3 pages, highlighting the most critical points, added a handwritten post-it note for Catherine West explaining that I was the suspended employee. This was evidence of fraud, and I needed her to read it before my termination hearing Monday morning. I sealed everything in a large envelope marked confidential, CEO eyes only, packaged it in a professional folder. Friday evening at 6:45, I put on my best professional clothes, black suit, white blouse, heels. I looked like I belonged in an office. I carried the folder like it was valuable, because it was. It was everything. I drove to the office building, parked in the visitor lot, and took a deep breath. This could go terribly wrong. Dennis could refuse, could report me, could have been told to watch out for me. But I had no other options. I walked through the main lobby. The evening security guard checked me in as a visitor without issue. I took the elevator to the executive floor. The doors opened. Dennis sat at the security desk, exactly where I hoped he would be. He looked up as I approached. His expression went from neutral to surprised to concerned. "Simone, what are you doing here? I heard you were suspended." I know I should not be here. But I need your help, Dennis. This is evidence of fraud happening in the company. Serious fraud. I need it on Catherine West's desk tonight, where she will see it first thing Monday morning before my termination hearing. I held out the folder. Dennis did not take it. He looked around nervously. His job was probably on the line for even talking to me. I cannot get involved in employee disputes. You know that. This is not a dispute. This is fraud. People are being hurt. Good people are losing their jobs because of lies and manipulation. I have proof. But I cannot get it to Catherine myself. I am suspended. I have no access. You are my only chance. Dennis hesitated. I could see him wrestling with it. His sense of duty to his job versus his sense of what was right. I played my last card. Your daughter is at college now, right? Doing well? He nodded slowly. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. She deserved that chance. Now I am asking you to help me because it is the right thing to do. I deserve that chance too. And so do all the people who are being pushed out of this company through fraud. Long silence. Dennis looked at the folder in my hands, then at me, then back at the folder. He took it. If anyone asks, I never saw you tonight. I nearly cried with relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will put this on her desk myself, in the center, where she cannot miss it. I left quickly, before anyone else could see me, rode the elevator down with my heart pounding, made it to my car, drove home in a daze. The weekend was agony. Saturday and Sunday crawled by. I had no idea if Catherine would even read it. No idea if Dennis actually delivered it. No idea if Todd might intercept it somehow. I had put everything on one desperate gamble. Monday morning at 6:30, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. A woman's voice. Professional, strong, controlled. This is Catherine West. I read your file. I have been in my office since 5 a.m., going through everything. Your termination hearing is canceled. I need you to come to my office at 8 a.m. sharp. Come directly to the executive floor. Dennis will be expecting you. My legs went weak. I sat down hard on my couch. She had read it. She believed me. Catherine continued. What Todd Harrison and Patricia Crane have done is unconscionable. We are going to fix this. Today. The call ended. I sat there for several minutes, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. I arrived at the building at 7:45, took the elevator to the executive floor. Dennis was at his desk. He saw me and smiled, a real smile. He pressed the button to unlock the security door. Good luck, Simone. Catherine West's office was at the end of a long hallway. Glass walls, modern furniture. She sat behind her desk, surrounded by printed documents. My documents. Evidence spread everywhere. She stood when I entered. Extended her hand. I shook it, trying to keep my composure. Sit down, Simone. We have a lot to discuss. She explained she had been going through everything since 5 a.m., but she had not waited until this morning to take action. She had contacted the board's ethics committee Saturday evening. Reached out to the company's outside legal counsel Sunday morning. She had been building a case. Then she told me something that shocked me. She said she had been receiving anonymous complaints about Todd for weeks, from clients, from other departments, from junior staff members. But they were vague. People were too afraid to come forward with details. Catherine had been investigating quietly during her overseas trip, gathering information. My file was the final piece. It confirmed everything she suspected and provided the hard evidence she needed to act. She thanked me for my courage in coming forward. Then she told me the plan. Todd and Patricia were being called to an emergency board meeting at 10 a.m. They did not know what it was about. They thought it was a routine quarterly review. They had no idea what was coming. Catherine asked if I wanted to be there, to see it through. I said yes. I needed to see this through. She made one more call before we left her office. She called HR and asked Bill Sutherland to come up immediately. When Bill arrived, looking confused, Catherine stood. You are fired, Bill. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. His face went white. But, what? You colluded with executives to manufacture false accusations against employees. You violated every HR ethics protocol we have. You betrayed the trust of every person in this company who came to you for help. You are done. Security appeared. Bill was escorted out, still sputtering protests. Catherine turned to me. You are reinstated with full back pay for your suspension period, and I am authorizing a significant raise as compensation for what you have endured. We will discuss your new salary after we deal with Todd and Patricia." I could barely speak. Thank you felt inadequate, but it was all I could manage. At 9:30, Catherine and I walked to the boardroom together. Todd and Patricia were already there, sitting at the massive conference table, looking confident and comfortable. They saw me, and confusion flickered across their faces. What was I doing here? I was supposed to be suspended, facing termination. 7 board members sat around the table, along with the company's outside attorney. The mood was serious. 10 a.m. The meeting began. Catherine presented the evidence methodically. She laid out everything. The Silverton account failure caused by Todd's decisions, the false accusations against me and others, the deleted presentation and deliberate sabotage, the systematic pattern of forcing out senior staff at their previous companies, Patricia's complicity in planning and executing the scheme, the financial damage to the company, the legal liability from wrongful treatment of employees. She showed documents, emails, financial reports, audit trails, everything Jordan had provided, presented in clear, undeniable detail. Todd tried to defend himself. He claimed I was vindictive, that I had fabricated evidence. He brought up his lawsuit against me, trying to paint me as someone with an agenda. Catherine cut him off. Your lawsuit is baseless harassment. Our legal team will be countersuing you for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The company will not tolerate executives using personal lawsuits to silence employees who report misconduct. Patricia tried a different approach. She claimed she was protecting company interests, making hard decisions for profitability, doing what was necessary. A board member, an older man named Gerald, spoke up. You cost this company millions of dollars. You destroyed our reputation with staff and clients. You exposed us to massive legal liability. You did not protect company interests. You nearly destroyed this company for short-term gains that would have made you look good on paper while leaving wreckage behind. The board voted. Unanimous. Todd Harrison terminated for cause. No severance. Patricia Crane terminated for cause. No severance. Both would be reported to industry regulatory boards for ethical violations. The company would issue formal apologies to all affected employees, and I would be promoted to Vice President of Operations. Todd's job. I would be taking his job. At 11:30 that morning, security escorted Todd and Patricia out of the building. I watched from Catherine's office window as they walked across the parking lot to their cars, carrying boxes of personal belongings. Todd looked up at the building. For a moment, I thought he might see me watching, but he just got in his car and drove away. That afternoon, Catherine called a company-wide meeting. She did not air every dirty detail, but she made it clear that Todd and Patricia had acted unethically and were no longer with the company. She announced several policy changes: better HR oversight with independent reporting channels, whistleblower protections that actually meant something, work-life balance initiatives to prevent burnout. She introduced me as the new Vice President of Operations. When the meeting ended, my team surrounded me. Angela had been rehired that morning with an apology and back pay. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Brian, who had texted me during my suspension, had tears in his eyes. People I barely knew from other departments came up to thank me for speaking up. Jake, from accounting, who had given notice during my suspension, withdrew his resignation. 3 other people who had been planning to leave decided to stay. The relief in the office was palpable. That evening, I called my mother. I told her everything was okay now. I transferred money for her medications and her overdue bills. She cried, asked me how I had survived it. I told her I almost did not, but I had found people who cared enough to help when it mattered most. I called Dennis, the security guard who had risked his job to deliver my file. I thanked him again. He said he was just glad he could help, that his daughter had taught him the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it is scary. I reached out to Jordan, the IT staff member who had provided the evidence that saved me. I offered him a promotion to IT security director. He accepted immediately. Said he had been planning to leave because he could not stand watching good people get hurt. Now he wanted to stay and help build something better. The next few weeks were busy. I moved into my new office, the one that used to be Todd's. I took down his corporate motivational posters and put up photos of my team. Real people, real relationships. I established an open-door policy, made it clear that anyone could come to me with concerns without fear of retaliation. My first major initiative was reviewing everyone who had been pushed out or quit during Todd's reign. We brought back several people with apologies and back pay. We conducted exit interviews with those who chose not to return and took their feedback seriously. The Silverton account came back. When I reached out to explain the leadership change, they agreed to meet. I brought my team, the people who had managed the relationship successfully for years. We rebuilt trust slowly and carefully. 6 months later, they renewed the full contract. One afternoon, about 2 months after everything happened, I saw one of my team members hesitating outside my office. A young woman named Sarah, relatively new to the company. She looked nervous, uncertain whether she should bother me. I waved her in with a warm smile. "Come in. My door is always open, and I always listen." She entered, visibly relieved, and sat down. She had ideas about a project but was not sure if they were good enough to bring forward. We talked for 30 minutes. Her ideas were excellent. I told her so, encouraged her to develop them further, offered to support her. After she left, I sat at my desk thinking about everything I had learned. Standing up to injustice is terrifying. It costs you. It nearly cost me everything. My job, my home, my career, my peace of mind. The system often protects the powerful. People like Todd and Patricia get away with hurting others because speaking up feels impossible. Because good people are afraid. Because the risk feels too great. But truth matters. Documentation matters. Having the courage to gather evidence and present it, even when you are scared, can make all the difference. What saved me was not just my own courage. It was the people who chose to help when they could have looked away. Jordan, who risked his career to give me evidence. Dennis, who risked his job to deliver my file. Catherine, who chose to investigate rather than dismiss complaints. Angela and Brian, who let me know I was not alone even when they could not speak up publicly. Building genuine relationships matters. Treating people with respect and kindness creates bonds that hold when everything falls apart. If I had not helped Dennis with his daughter's essays years ago, he might not have helped me. If I had not trained Jordan when he was new, he might not have provided evidence. If I had not led my team with integrity, they might not have supported me during the darkest time. I learned that sometimes you have to risk everything to do what is right. That the fight is worth it even when you are terrified. That justice is not guaranteed, but it is worth fighting for anyway. I use my position now to protect others the way I wished someone had protected me. I listen when people come forward with concerns. I investigate before I judge. I create space for truth-telling without retaliation. I remember what it felt like to be powerless, and I use my power to make sure others do not have to feel that way. The people who seem powerless often have more power than they realize. One person speaking truth can start a cascade. One act of courage can inspire others. One piece of evidence can change everything. I will never forget what Todd tried to do to me. But I also will never forget the people who stood with me when it mattered. That is what I carry forward. Not the bitterness, but the lesson about what kind of leader I want to be. Every day, I try to be worthy of the trust my team places in me. To create the kind of workplace where people feel safe, where they can do excellent work without fear, where speaking up is encouraged, not punished, where integrity matters more than politics. That is the legacy I want to build. Not just success, but success built on treating people right. So let me ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation at work where someone in power abused that power? Where you saw injustice happening but felt too afraid to speak up? What would you do if you were in my position? Would you risk everything to stand up for what is right? Or would you keep your head down and hope it gets better? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own experiences, or gave you hope that justice is possible even in dark times, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they are not alone in their struggles. And if you want to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the courage to overcome them, please subscribe to this channel. Every story I share is meant to remind you that you are stronger than you think, and that standing up for what is right is always worth it, even when it is hard. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone going through a difficult time at work. Maybe someone who feels powerless and needs to be reminded that courage can change everything. Your share might be exactly what someone needs today. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it was a difficult journey, but I hope it left you feeling inspired and reminded that good people still exist in this world. That truth still matters. That fighting for what is right is never a waste, even when the outcome is uncertain. Take care of yourselves. Stand up for what is right, and remember that you are never as alone as you feel. There are always people willing to help if you are brave enough to ask. Until next time, stay strong and keep fighting the good fight.